Good evening. Welcome back to the channel, everybody, or welcome if this is your first time joining on the Chronicles of Colvin, or if it's the first time that you're finding this channel. Please go ahead and like, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos that I have coming out. Today we have another review, TV show review. If you can't tell, I've got on my glasses, my best Ben Stone glasses, and where I'm reviewing Manifest today. Now, I'm not going to break down episodes for this one. My wife and I, we binge watched the whole series on Netflix. And so I'm going to give just kind of my overview thoughts, and then I'll go into a little bit of spoiler discussion about it. This show was a show that I had actually started a couple times before, several years ago, and I'd never made it through the first season. I only watched about half of the first season, and then I'd always just kind of fall off on it. I knew how the show had ended because I remember reading about it and how there was a lot of upset fans that didn't really like the ending or how it did end. So there was that. Also, I just never really got into it. So I think we decided to watch it. We were talking about shows that had bad endings, or that endings that people didn't like, and I threw out this show to watch, and we started watching it. But to my surprisement, I actually really did like it, and I got into it this time, and this go around watching it. Basically, the premise of the show is they were given the chance to get on another flight coming back from vacation. The main family, but the rest of the characters, there was a flight 828, and they got on the flight, and basically, when they landed, they thought that they were landing correctly, but as it turned out, they'd been missing for 5.5 years. So basically, the whole of the show and the plot of the show is where'd they go for those 5.5 years. It's them trying to figure things out. They quickly find out that they have callings, and that these callings lead them to help people. Now, as the show started out, the callings would help them, usually with just passengers on the plane. Now, as the show evolved, as it moved on, it started having to do with other people outside of the plane. So the show really focuses on there's two main characters, two co-leads, and their brother and sister, Ben and Michaela Stone. They were on Flight 828. They're kind of the captains of the ship and the callings, trying to figure everything out. Ben's son was also on the flight, and he had leukemia at the time. Now, when they come back, it's been 5.5 years. There's a doctor who was doing research on leukemia, and in those 5.5 years, they actually had a breakthrough. So they're able to save Cal and his cancer very early on in the series. There's other characters that weren't on the plane that become main characters. Ben's wife, Grace. Michaela also had her partner who had actually proposed to her. He's a main character throughout the show. I'll get into more stuff with them in the spoiler discussion of this video. But what I really liked, the acting was, for the most part, it was good acting for the TV show. I thought the guy that played Ben, I thought he did a great job. I really liked him. I thought the kid that played Ben's son, I thought did a good job. And several of the others did. I thought they did a good job. I can't say the acting was bad. But what really drew me in was the writing, especially as a show as the show went along and progressed, the way that they were able to write things, and then episodes later would weave it back into connect, I thought was very well done. To be a fly on the wall in that writing room, when they were coming up with all of these thoughts and things and how things connected and everything, that would have been interesting to see, because that would have been very interesting. Things I noticed on the opening credits that Robert Zemeckis was, I believe, an executive producer on all 4 seasons. I don't know how much involvement he actually had. If you don't know, Robert Zemeckis, of course, directed Back to the Future. He created that. Let's see. I'm trying to think what I can get into that's non-spoilery. The ending. My wife was not a big fan of the ending. I, however, like the ending. It's an ending that it does end. It ties everything up for the most part, but it still leaves you with questions. And I think that was the whole point of the show, was to leave you with questions. I remember reading an article where it said that Manifest's ending was akin to Lost. I haven't ever watched Lost. Reason why I haven't ever watched Lost, because I remember everyone being so mad at the ending and how they ended it. So I never watched Lost just because of that. But I remember how Lost was such a phenomenon, and people were talking about it all the time because of how well it was wrote up until that last season, and then they just fell off, and it did not end well, and a lot of people were mad. Game of Thrones had the same thing happen to it. Their ending. George R.R. Martin, he never wrote the next book, so the writers of the show, they had to write an ending, and the fans did not like the ending that they came up with. And to this day, George R.R. Martin still says he's going to write that last book, and it's not going to be what they did in the show. I think they should have waited till he wrote the book and then had the finale. But again, I thought this was good. I thought they ended it good. It still left you with some questions. I'll talk about those in the spoiler part of the video. But for the most part, I liked it. So I think that's really all I want to say, non-spoilery. If you haven't watched the show and you're thinking about watching it, I recommend it. I think I will go ahead. I'll do my rating for the show now before I do the spoiler discussion. That way, if you hop off, you still know what my rating for the overall series was. And I give Manifest a strong 7 out of 10. And I say 7 out of 10 because there's a few tropes that do linger on, especially in the latter 2 seasons, that I felt like was just doing for TV. Some things they drag on, especially in the last season, they drag on a little bit, that I didn't really feel was necessary to drag it on that much. So yeah, I give it a 7 out of 10. Liked it, recommend it, definitely check it out. It is a show that you have to pay attention to. You can't just pop in and out of it. You do need to pay attention, because things connect way on down the line. Things connect to other things. So you have to pay attention. Okay, so 7 out of 10. With that being said, we're going to go ahead. We're going to get into spoilers. So spoiler alert. If you haven't watched it yet and you don't want to be spoiled, now would be the time to hop off and come back to the video later after you have watched it. If you have watched it and you want to see what I talk about with the spoilers, feel free to continue watching. But here we go. So, spoilers. So basically, the show spends the majority of his time trying to figure out where the passengers were at. And that's kind of Ben's thing. He's kind of the science guy. He's trying to figure it all out. He kind of ignores the callings at first, but then him and his sister starts answering the callings, and she starts saving people. So then Ben, she convinces Ben to really start digging into these callings. So as the show goes on, they find out that they're all connected because of the plane, and that everyone on the plane is having these callings. So as they go through, basically the first couple seasons, the big threat is this Major that she has kidnapped ones that were on the plane. She was doing experiments on them. They're ultimately able to save them, and they find out that the Major is trying to weaponize the callings that they had. I kind of spaced out there for a second because I pulled something up to talk about here in the spoiler section, and IMDb overall rating of the show is a 7 out of 10. So I didn't look at that before I gave my rating. So there's that. So it must be an average rating. Now, after the first couple of seasons, the Major is no longer a threat. One of the passengers, the doctor that was on the inside with the Major, she actually ends up killing the Major. So she's no longer a threat. Then the threat turns to the death date, that they figure out that they were gone for 5.5 years. They only have 5.5 years left to live, and then they'll die. That was because they figure out the callings lead them to this individual way back when, this Al-Azir. Basically, it shows that the same thing happened to them. They disappeared for 5.5 years, came back, and then they all died. And that's where they got this death date. And they kind of lead you to suspicion then in the show that this Al-Azir was on the ocean in his boat, and that the plane came through this storm and they were in at the same time. They really don't explain that later on in the show. I don't think it was at the same time, but at that time they kind of make you lead with that. Then things kind of do get a little odd because Cal is led to this guy that died in a cave, and he came back much like the 828 passengers, but he died and he came back, and him and Michaela fell in love, and then he had his own death date that was separate from theirs, but he beat his death date and actually came back to life because he followed the callings. So the rest of the show is basically they think they have to follow the callings to prevent their death date. So they follow the callings, trying to do all this good. There's an NSA agent, Vance. He actually is investigating them. The first season, he actually turns into an ally. He fakes his death. He ends up coming back at some point. There's a lot that really goes on in this show. Now, what I was looking up to talk about was, I felt like the first 3 seasons were very strong. And then the 4th season was on Netflix. Now, the first season had 16 episodes. The second season had 13 episodes. And the third season had 13 episodes. The fourth season, when they went to Netflix, had 20 episodes. Season 4 didn't need 20 episodes. 10 episodes would have been sufficient. Season 4 is what really brought my rating of the show down, because the writing wasn't as good on season 4 as it was the first 3 seasons. Yes, they still connect things, but the callings are not as in-depth as what they were the first 3 seasons. They don't connect as well as what they did the first 3 seasons. There's a girl that becomes a bad guy that they had saved off the plane, Angelina. She ends up, I believe, the end of season 3, she ends up killing Ben's wife and kidnapping her and Grace's daughter, claiming the daughter that she's her guardian angel. And she is evil throughout season 4. And she almost dies several times, but she doesn't die. They just kind of keep it going. She just kind of keeps hanging around. There is another character, Egan. Again, his character had too much screen time. He wasn't likable. And it was just, they kept the same tropes going with those 2 characters that I don't think they should have for 20 episodes. It was just too much. And then Zeke, the one that came back that beat his death date, him and Michaela were together. In season 4, he actually takes Cal's cancer because it comes back. When he came back, he had like empathic abilities. And he was able to take pain from people. So he takes the cancer from Cal. Now, Cal had aged up because they had found a piece of the plane in the ocean that didn't track because they had already found the plane, and then this wing just suddenly appeared in the ocean. That didn't make any sense. And they couldn't really explain it. They were trying to figure out, was there 2 planes? Is it because of different times? Whatever. But Cal touches that and he disappears. Well, he comes back, but he's aged 5.5 years older than what he was. Which was a mystery, and they couldn't figure that out either. So, as the show, season 4, kind of puts Michaela and her partner back together, which I didn't like because she knew they were going to beat the death date or going to try, and she knew that her and Zeke were going to be together again. But she still went back with her ex-fiancé, and then they get back together. And I didn't like that. I don't know why they wrote them back together. It didn't make any sense. Then you find out that Jared is this guy's name, that his girlfriend was actually pregnant, and he's the dad. And then he's kind of playing this, oh, I'm going to be a dad, but I'm going to be with Michaela. Kind of weird storyline. And Michaela finally tells him he needs to go back with Drea, who was the girl that was pregnant. It was just kind of a weird storyline. I didn't like a lot of the things that Netflix did with the writing for season 4. And then now the ending, I did like the ending, but it also leaves you with questions. So the ending basically is Cal ends up sacrificing himself to this fisher, because basically what ends up happening is the world is basically ending because of this 828 flight. And there's a volcano that's coming up through New York City, and it creates this fissure of lava. And so basically Cal sacrifices himself to this fissure. Now what happens when he does that is the plane actually comes back out of the fissure. The passengers all get back on the plane. The plane takes off. It's the same thing as when the plane left. They encounter this lightning. But what happens this time is, basically, if they followed the callings, they survived. But if they didn't, they died. So I think 11 people on the flight, including Angelina, they die. Then the plane lands. They all get off the plane, and they're back in 2013, where the show originally started, when they were coming back from their vacation. And basically, the whole thing was Cal's back to being a little boy. Basically, the whole theme of the show was they all got this second chance, this do-over at life. Michaela found Zeke again at the end, so they were going to get together. She told Jared that they weren't supposed to be together. So I liked how they ended that, but it leaves you with the questions. Did all those years after they came back the first time actually happen? Because Ben's wife wasn't on the plane, but she was there. His daughter grew up the 5.5 years they were gone, and then she helped them when they came back. So did all that happen? Were all they there? They had no memory of it. Only the passengers on the plane had a memory of it, but nobody else did. So it kind of led you with that. Did it actually happen? Was it all a dream? I mean, they all had the same memory, so obviously it did happen for them. But what about the other people? Did it happen to them and they just don't remember it? How it left you with these questions. Another question was, when Zeke came back after he beat his death date, he had these abilities. Do all the passengers on the plane have these abilities? They don't tell you that. Basically, you're just left with this happy ending, and then the NSA shows up in Vance to investigate how 11 passengers disappear on a plane that lands. But instead of all of the passengers and the plane disappearing. So there was a lot in this show. I could have done a video for every episode and done a review, but like I said, we just kind of jumped into this and we just kind of binge watched it. So it would have took much longer for us to watch if I would have done a review after each episode. But I did want to do just a review for it and what I thought of it, how I liked the ending. I thought the characters were strong. Some of the characters get old. Some of them, like I said, aren't written the greatest, and they struggle with some tropes like the evil girl. She keeps coming back. She keeps coming back. She keeps coming back. Then they say, oh, well, we can't kill her because she has to be around for the death date, and on and on and on. So, but overall, I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I do recommend watching it. It is a show that keeps you on your toes. You have to pay attention. And the way they weave things in with the writing and how things connect and the symbols and the mythology. I really liked all of that. There's a book by Paulo Coelho, probably saying that wrong. I believe it's The Alchemist. But it's a book, and the story is about a young boy who goes on this treasure hunt. And his treasure hunt starts, he's taking a nap underneath a tree, and he has these dreams. And he goes on this treasure hunt following these dreams. And basically, the treasure hunt leads him back to that tree that he fell asleep under, and the treasure was under him the whole time. He digs it up. But the treasure, yes, he found the treasure, but the real treasure was the journey and him finding it. And that's kind of what this show is about, because as you find out in the last season, the Collings are leading them all back to a place where they were at in the very first episode. And the things they needed were right there hidden, and they just didn't know it. They had to go on this journey to find these things. And so that's kind of like what I kind of equate the show to, which I really liked. That's one of my favorite books, and I liked how they did that. So I definitely recommend checking it out. I don't think you'll be disappointed, especially if you like shows like this. I'm not sure what my next series that I'm going to review is going to be, I do need to get Andor watched. I still have not watched Andor yet. I will be watching it soon. I just don't know when. I need to watch. I need to, not want to. I need to watch Ironheart just for the sake of watching it. I don't want to. I don't have any interest in it, but it is MCU related, and I will watch it and do a review for it. I don't know if I will do episodic on that one or if I'll just watch it, get it over with, and then give my thoughts and reviews on it. So I have those two out there. I have talked to my wife. We talked about watching another show that I believe Josh Allen. Let me look this up. Real quick. Ben Stone. Manifest. Actor. Josh Dallas. Josh Dallas played Ben Stone in Manifest, and I really liked him. He was on another show called Once Upon a Time. And I talked to my wife about it. We might start watching that show. But I think I'm going to stick to only watching one episode at a time and then doing a review of it. That way we don't get bogged down with watching, binging and watching show after show. And I can watch one episode and then think about it, review it, and get my review up before we move on to the next episode. So be on the lookout for that. That's a possibility that may be coming. So hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on anything coming out. You can follow me on my other social media accounts. You can follow me on Facebook or Instagram. I have the links to those on my channel page. If you go to the channel page, they'll be there. Please like and subscribe. It definitely helps build the channel. I'm trying to build the channel into this community where we can talk about entertainment and all these things and all these shows and everything that's going on in a positive light with no negativity. And when I say no negativity, I mean no derogativeness towards people. That you can come in the comments, give your opinion. You won't be torn down for it. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. These shows are art. Art is subjective. Some will like it, some will not. Just be respectful of that, just like in life. So, with that being said, I thank you for watching. I thank you for the support. Hope everyone has a great weekend, and we will see you on the next video.